because that's what we're supposed to do.
Have a camera store.
What happens in the school is not the school's fault, it's some parent's fault. By the way, if you start training your child up at a young age on how to keep and bear arms, you don't have to worry about their safety around them. My son is 13 and he has been shooting since he was 3. And we didn't start him with an AR. He started with a BB gun, but that was enough for him to understand the power and the responsibility behind what he was using. Since he was probably about 8 years old, I'm probably incriminating myself now in 49 states. We have never had to hide away or lock our firearms in the presence of our son. Because he is well trained. As a matter of fact, right now, at the age of 13, he outshoots both his daddy and me. But I want you to see what immediately follows Richard Henry Lee's statement. Because even in our conservative circles, we still have people who believe the Second Amendment is about an organized militia at the state level. Look at what Richard Henry Lee says. And be taught alike, especially when young, how to use them. Nor does it follow from this that all promiscuously must go into actual service on every occasion. The mind that aims at a select militia must be influenced by a truly anti-republican principle. That's not the party, that's the government. And when we see many men disposed to practice upon it whenever they can prevail, no wonder true Republicans are for carefully guarding against it. Anybody that tries to tell you that the right to keep and bear arms is so we can organize in a militia doesn't understand the history, the wisdom, and the intent behind the Second Amendment. Or behind your Article 2, Section 5. Now the last one we're going to hear from is Patrick Henry. Because I like him. Because he's fiery. Probably one of the greatest orators of our country. Now let me set the backdrop here. We are in Virginia. The Virginia ratification debate. And they're debating on whether the Second Amendment, as we know it, or the right to keep and bear arms, as they knew it, was to be codified in the Bill of Rights. One of the delegates stepped up and said a whole bunch of things, about this right, this right, this right. And he said, I don't think we need to put the right to keep and bear arms into the Bill of Rights. Number one, because, you see, we have lived through so much. There's no way the American psyche will ever allow a government to disarm itself again. And he said, not only that, you see, we needed to have these arms all the time because we lived in a kingdom. And the only way you control and limit a kingdom is when you hold a sword at the king's throat. If you don't have a sword at the king's throat, he's going to run over you. But we are intentionally avoiding that. We are intentionally preventing that. We are creating a constitutional republic where there be a myriad of simple, peaceful ways to control government right in the very daily hands of the people. So this right to keep and bear arms, it is an inherent right. But there are other important things that the people might forget. They won't forget this one. Now Patrick Henry didn't like that explanation. He gives up and gives this fiery oration. And in his style, the record says that he turned and sneered at the other guy who had just made the presentations. And he said, "Oh, sir, we should have fine times indeed if to punish tyrants it were only sufficient to assemble the people. Your arms wherewith you could defend yourselves are gone." Did you ever read of any revolution in a nation inflicted against those in power by those who have no power at all.
Hong Kong.
Because it's not about robbers and rapists. It's about keeping the government from enslaving. It's about keeping the government from disarming. It's about keeping the government from enforcing an oppressive and unjust laws on the people. It's about the essential need to preserve liberty always. It's about the requirement to pass that knowledge and skill on to our children. I just want you to think about this from a logical standpoint to help you with your gun control friends. You explain to them, as best you can in this history. And say, okay, since we know the right to keep and bear arms was in the Second Amendment so that we would not be disarmed, we would not be infringed. That's what it says, right? Shall not be infringed. So the Second Amendment is written, and so our rights won't be infringed, which means they won't be taken away from us. Our right to keep and bear arms won't be taken away from us, right? So if it's about hunting, were the founding fathers afraid that the deer and the rabbit would organize to disarm us? If it's about robbers and rapists, were they afraid that the criminals would organize in a criminal racket to disarm all law-abiding citizens and consolidate all gun ownership into the criminals' hands? Well, if you believe that the Department of Justice or the ATF are an organized band of criminals, then you might, make that service.
From what we gathered, they organize.
You see, simple logic, fact, and history defeats these arguments. And we need to possess this history, this education. See, without this, how can you make a positioned defense? See, I believe that the majority of people who love their right to keep and bear arms but do not speak proactively in favor of it, who do not engage these politicians who so confidently speak of things that are wrong, it's because they themselves are not settled in these principles. That's why we must be knowledgeable. Because without knowledge, it's impossible to have the courage to speak. So let's think about this. The right to keep and bear arms. The right of the people to keep and bear arms. Is it a right or is it a permission? Look at this. The definition of the word right. See, we don't have to break out Black's Law Dictionary. You can go get Webster's and figure this out. This is not something that it takes decades of scholarly study.
You're right.
Stop listening to your professors. Stop listening to the judges. Do you know why they want you to believe that you can't know this? Because if you know this, they don't have power over you.
Amen.
Yep.